Okay, surface area and volume. This is going to be the first video. There's lots of shapes. The first one that we're going to cover is rectangular prisms. So rectangular just means all the sides are rectangular. Prism is just another word that means 3D shape. So if you want to think about it that way, it's 3 dimensions. So give you a quick lesson in how to draw these because everybody has trouble with these. Draw any square or rectangle, it doesn't matter. Go over a little bit and down a little bit and start a new corner and draw another rectangle the same size on top of the other one. Then just connect these corners that correspond. Now we're going to label it 3 inches, 4 inches for that angled side, and 6 inches. Now for this formula, by the way, you don't have to memorize these formulas. On the GED formula sheet, they are right here under geometry. Top half of the formula sheet is geometry. This is 2-dimensional shapes up here. This is 3-dimensional shapes down here. It's the very first one, rectangular prism. So that's SA for surface area and V for volume. So this is the one we're going to start out with. So volume, length times width times height. Now when you pick these numbers to be these letters, it has no bearing which numbers are which letters. I'm just going to always pick the one going up and down for the height. That's just me. I'm always going to pick the one going the long ways for the length, and I'm always going to pick the angled one for the width. But it doesn't matter because when you multiply these 3 numbers, it doesn't matter the order that you multiply, you're always going to get the same thing. So this is pretty simple as long as you know what length, width, and height stand for, and as long as you're looking at your formula sheet, you're just taking these 3 numbers and plugging them in. So the length was 6 multiplied by the width, which is 4, multiplied by the height, which is 3. So you can punch this in on your calculator. You will have a calculator for these problems. So what do we got? 1272, I think. Now it's not just 72. You got to know what this is measured in. Volume is always going to be measured in cubic units. So you look back to the units you were in, which was inches. So it's inches cubed. Now I've seen people say, okay, since that's cubed, I need to cube this number. That's not correct. This number is already finished. The cube just means you're measuring a cubic unit of measurement, which means basically how many 1 by 1 by 1 cubes are going to fit inside this box. So 72 of these cubes will fit inside of this box. And that's another discussion I forgot about. So what is volume? Volume is what fits inside. So you've heard of the volume of drinks. So we usually call plastic bottles 20 ounces. So when you say 20 ounce, I think that's OZ, what you're saying is the volume that fits inside of that bottle. 20, and it's actually fluid ounces because there is a weight that's ounces. So this is 20 FLOZ, which stands for fluid ounces. So what you're saying is that is what fits inside of that shake. So that's your volume. There's volume that's used for all kinds of things. That's just the one that's the easiest for me to remember. So the other measurement you can get from 3D shapes is SA, which stands for surface area. Now the best example for surface area that I can give you is wrapping paper. If you're going to wrap this box up for somebody's birthday, you need enough paper to cover all 6 sides. So you need to know what the surface area is Now, of course, you can always, with a present, you can use more and cut down to where you need. But for more specific intentions, if you need to know the exact surface area, you can think about it as how much wrapping paper covers what you're trying to wrap. So the formula for that, again, is right here on your GED formula sheet. And it is 2LW plus 2LH plus 2WH. So what you're doing is you're using each side twice. So you've got an L here, and you got an L here. You got a W here and a W here, and then you got an H here and an H here. So if you have a shape that has 3 different numbers for its size, each one of these numbers is going to appear twice in this formula. So I would suggest labeling these so that you don't get them mixed up for this one. So the length was 6, the width was 4, and the height was 3. If you just take 2 seconds to make yourself some notes, it makes this a lot easier and makes it less likely that you're going to get it wrong. So you got 2 times 6 times 4 plus 2 times 6 times 3 plus 2 times 4 times 3. Now you can punch this entire thing into the calculator. Some people like to punch in each little section and then add them all together. That's okay. I'm doing mine without a calculator. You will have a calculator on the GED. So if you can practice that, that will help you. So 2 times 6 times 4 is 48. Plus 2 times 6 times 3 is 36. Plus 2 times 4 times 3 is 24. Now if I add all those together, 84, 108. Now, only volume is measured in cubes. Surface area is just like normal area. The only difference is you're measuring the area of all 6 sides instead of the area of just one rectangle. So if you already did the area and perimeter lesson, you should already know that area is always measured in square units. So you're measuring how many 1 by 1 squares it will take to cover this shape. So it'll take 108 squares to cover this. 72 cubes will fit inside of this. So those are the 2 different things that you need to distinguish between on the test. And an easy way to look at it is to look at your answers. If your answers are in cubic units, then you already know that you're doing something with volume. That will only occur when you're doing volume on the GED. If you're doing something with square units, it's always going to be area. Now, it could be just plain area or it could be surface area. You've got to make that distinction. And that's when you have to decide, was this a 2-dimensional shape or a 3-dimensional shape? Well, it's got 3 dimensions, 3, 4, and 6, so it's a 3-dimensional shape. Now, the next thing you might have to do is find missing sides. I've never seen a problem where they give you surface area and find missing sides, but I have seen problems where they give you the volume and ask you to find the missing sides. So another one of those. They might say 3 feet for the height, 5 feet for the width, and then X. And you don't know that side. And then they tell you the volume is 105 feet cubed. So how do you do this? Anytime, not just with geometry, anytime you're given what you would normally be finding as the final answer, and you got to work backwards, you always just do the reverse of what you would normally do. So we can start off by multiplying these two. We can't multiply that because we don't know what it is. So we can start off by saying 3 times 5. Now, normally we would multiply this last number to get this number. So the opposite of multiplying this times this to get this is dividing this by this to get this. So on your calculator, if you punch in 105 divided by 15, it will give you 7 if I did my math right. So now we know that that missing side is 7 feet. So we're going to do a few of these for practice. First worksheet. So on this first row, I think what they're wanting you to do is write out what you're doing to get these. Now they've got their formula written out, length times width times height, but on the GED it's just going to say LWH. So again, there's 3 numbers. It makes no difference which one you pick as long as you include all 3 numbers. So 4 times 4 times 6. Once you that on the calculator, you'd have 24, which would be 96, I believe. I guess I could look at my answer sheet. Yep, 96 inches cubed. And again, that tells you you're doing volume, obviously, but that also tells you that you're doing volume, and it tells you which formula to use. Now, immediately we're doing one where we got to find the missing number. So again, we take the 2 sides that we've got. 3 times 6 is 18. We take our 18 and we divide it into 90. So 90 divided by 18 ends up being 5. So our missing side is 5 inches. Now I want you to pause your video and work these to number 3 and number 4. All right, so you should have multiplied 3 times 7 times 8, and you get 168 meters cubed. This one you should have multiplied 2 times 7, you got 14, and then 98 divided by 14, and you get 7. I'll go ahead and leave these 2 for you to practice. If you downloaded this, the second sheet is the answer page. You can check your answers. All right. This is everyone's Achilles heel, is word problems. Now, this obviously tells you what you're going to be doing in these word problems. They're not always going to be telling you. This one has it in the question, so that's pretty easy. So a cube is a rectangular prism with the same measurement for each length, width, and height. If a cube is 4 inches tall, what is the volume? Now, a lot of people right away would get confused with this. You've got to know what your shapes are and what they mean. If you know your vocabulary, if you don't, you need to go back and study all your 3D shapes. A cube means all the sides are the same. The first thing I always do, if you've seen any of my geometry videos, is I draw a picture. It doesn't have to be perfect. It will help you solve the problem. So 4 inches tall. Well, that's all they gave you. But they also told you that the length and the width and the height are all the same. So this is going to be 4 and this is going to be 4. So they want volume, 4 times 4 times 4, and you end up with 64 inches cubed. Okay, let's do this one together. A desk. So you can draw a desk. It doesn't have to really be a desk. It could just be a rectangular prism if you wanted to. 1.5 inches wide, 5 feet long, and 3 feet tall. So those are your 3 dimensions. What is the volume of the space under the desk? 3 times 5 times 1.5 is going to give you 22.5 feet cubed. So pause your video and try number 3 and number 4. Okay, drawer is 5 feet wide. Four feet deep, 2 feet tall. I got all those mixed up, but it doesn't matter. Let's just go ahead and rewrite it, make it less confusing. What is the volume of the drawer? 2 times 5 times 4 is 10 times 4 is 40 feet cubed. Seems like a big drawer. A block is 2 inches wide, 3 inches long, 2 inches tall. 2 times 2 times 3 is 12 inches cubed. Go ahead and save that for you to do. Your second sheet will have the answers. Now we're going to do a few surface area problems. So you need your formula sheet again. Go ahead and pull it out to show you. These are, by the way, if I haven't said it before in a video, these are free to print out. All you got to do is type in GED formula sheet on any search engine, and it should bring this up. You can print it out to use, practice with. So here's our formula. So you can label these width, length, height. So 2LW. Oops, we're not going to have enough room. We'll save that for the answer. 2LW plus 2LH times 2WH. Punch all that in on the calculator exactly how it appears. Oh, I'm sorry. Show it where you can see it. Just punch in, if you have a TI, I haven't mentioned it yet in this video, TI 30XS. If you have something else, you might have to do it differently, because the TI 30XS knows PEMDAS, parentheses, exponent, multiply, divide, add, subtract. So on the TI 30XS, you can just type in 2 times 13 times 9 plus 2 times 13 times 3 plus 2 times 9 times 3 and hit enter, and it will give you an answer without having to do all these separately. Now, I'm not going to do all these separately. If I had a calculator, I would do it on that. But I'm going to look at the answer sheet and tell you that you should get 366 inches squared. I'm going to do one more with you. So we'll label this WLH. 2LW plus 2LH plus 2WH. Put all that on the calculator. 2 times 20 times 4 plus 2 times 20 times 6 plus 2 times 4 times 6. And you will get 448 yards squared. I'll leave the rest of this worksheet for you to do. The second sheet has answers on it. And this one I'm actually going to leave for you also, because it wants the volume and the surface area. So you can see the difference. Actually, I'll do one with you. You can see the difference between volume and surface area. I think there's only one rectangular prism where the answers are gonna be the same, and I think that's like a 4x4 by 4. But all the rest of your numbers should be different for volume and surface area. Volume, 2 times 3 times 3. 6, which would be 18. 18 inches cubed. Okay, surface area, 2 times 2 times 3 plus 2 times 3 times 3 plus 2 times 2 times 3. And we'll look at my answer sheet, and you should get 42 inches squared, if I did that right. I'll leave the other 3 for you to do. That is the end of the video.